and we'll get off and running here. So just to remind everybody, the vision of the Milton School District is that we believe in opportunities, achievement, and community for all. And the mission that supports that is that the School District of Milton, in partnership with the community, prepares our students for achievement and lifetime readiness by providing opportunities for all. Having said that, I will call to order at 6:32 the Board of Education meeting for Monday, May 22nd. Please join me in a salute to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Rich, are you aware of any changes to our agenda?
No changes to the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Motion from Rick, seconded by Dave to approve our agenda. Are there any questions? All in favor of approval signify with aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Thank you. Agenda is set. Minutes that are included in board docs from our previous meeting.
I'll move to approve the minutes for the regular meeting held on May 8th, 2023 as presented.
Second.
Thank you. That motion is from Dave, seconded by Jen to approve our previous meeting minutes. Are there any questions on those? All in favor of approval signify with aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Thank you. The minutes are approved. Following up with vouchers.
I'll move to approve general checking account vouchers totaling $879,976.89 as presented.
Second. Thank you. That motion from John is seconded by Rick to approve our checking account vouchers in the amount he just enumerated. Are there questions on the vouchers? All in favor of approval signify with aye.
Aye.
And opposed? That motion clearly passes. The vouchers are approved. And the student council reports. Mesa, welcome.
All right, so we will be having our last meeting this week, Thursday, for student council. We're going to swear in the new officers for next year, and then they're also going to come up with some ideas for homecoming as well, just planning ahead. We also just had our neon dance, and that was very successful. The kids loved it. And then also the teacher luncheon. It was a great time. I think the teachers enjoyed it. And then we also just finished up our thank you notes to the prison system for letting us visit and interview them as well. And then for next year, the school board representative that will be taking my position is Tegan Perkins Walker. And then Hattie will be continuing as the senior representative. And I just wanted to thank you guys for this opportunity, and I will continue to be involved in my community, you Madison next year. I've loved being in this position and being a bridge between the school and you guys and the school board. So thank you very much.
Well, Mesa, on behalf of the school board, we certainly want to thank and congratulate you. Of course, Mesa's a senior, going to graduate here in a few days. And we have loved getting to know you and having your input from the high school lens. So best of luck in your future endeavors, and take care. Okay, at the student council report is public comment, and we have a few folks tonight. We haven't had for a minute, but just as a way of reminder, we have 4 folks signed up, and I picked it up a minute or two early. There's room for 1 or 2 folks if they wanted to speak that aren't on the list. If not, we'll take the 4 that are signed up. I'll welcome you up in the order that you signed up. Just as a reminder, speak on a topic on the agenda. That doesn't seem to be an issue. That seems to be fairly common for everyone here. So hold it to near 3 minutes. Won't be to the second, but I'll remind you if you get close to that. So. Bonnie Stalker is first. Welcome up, Bonnie.
Hello, everybody. I'm Bonnie Stalker. I'm a Milton resident and taxpayer. I'm mother of 2 adult girls who both graduated from Milton High School for 10, 12, 13 years ago now. Hard to remember. I'm a retired educator. I advocate for Milton School District's education, activities, and sports. I'm very active in the community. I am still involved with young people through education by coaching. I'm the director of Crossfire Volleyball Club. I've been a part of Milton area volleyball for the past 19 years. We are a youth program that offers volleyball, quality volleyball, for all ages from 9 years to seniors in high school. And then we are under the USAV, United States Volleyball Association. We have participated at Milton High School and Milton schools over the most of these years. We've been able to grow into a very competitive youth program with most students participating in the past year. We've had over 160 participants over this past year, most ever. It's been affordable for our area youth in direct support and development of the school program. We exist to allow most of our players to play multiple sports and participate in other activities during club volleyball. These athletes don't have to travel to Madison, Milwaukee, Rockford, or other areas to train and have volleyball opportunities outside of school. Each spring we make a donation to school facilities that we use, and it goes directly to the volleyball program through equipment or supporting gym upgrades. Our goal is to continue to support the volleyball and athletic programs. We have healthy working relationships with each school athletic departments, and I couldn't ask for better people to work with. We continue to communicate and work hard in that partnership, and would like to continue that with these people in the school programs. By charging the rate you're proposing for us, it would eliminate at least half our program. We make it affordable because of the no cost of using the gym at the current rate. We will not be able to offer our programs for multiple practices, and we have to cut back our program or number of participants. We'll have to add the cost of kids. Of course, the kids will pick up the cost if they participate in our program, but we pride ourselves in making it affordable and competitively to other programs in Northern Illinois and Southern Wisconsin. We have quality coaches that we pay, and these kids will have somewhere to go at night, enjoy playing volleyball or other sports, meet new people, compete at a quality level. In addition, they are learning to be good teammates, hard workers, develop character, and do something healthy. I understand you need to find a way to make money since the referendum didn't pass. I voted for it. But these costs are way out of range that we're able to fit into our budget. I'm hoping we can consider groups that have used it in the past, maybe grandfather them in somehow, reduce that rate so we can continue a quality program and affordability for our kids. We can raise our rates or even go somewhere else. But Milton kids and Milton programming will be the ones to pay for it in more ways than one. We're already cutting athletic funding, and we would like to continue to support by donation directly to their programs so they can benefit directly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next had sign up was Sarah King.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sarah King. I serve as a current president of the Milton Band Parents Association. Tonight I am reading a prepared statement on behalf of the Milton Band Parents regarding facilities use fees. We, the Milton Band Parents Association, understand that the failure to pass a funding referendum has placed the school district in difficult financial position. The mission of the Band Parents Association to directly support the activities of the Milton High School band students by helping to fund the high school band program. The funds that we raise are donated to the school band program to help cover the costs incurred in show and drill creation, participation in regional and statewide marching band competition, band camps, rehearsals, activities of symphonic band, wind ensemble, show choir, jazz band. Our fundraising includes funds earmarked directly for student scholarships as well. The marching band program alone will include 115 high school students for the 2023 season. Our fundraising and support supplies this highly successful program that serves so many students with a significant portion of its funding. I also want to note too that we are starting a new uniform campaign this year, looking to earn upwards of $75,000, all of which will be raised by MBPA, as the school district is not participating in the raising of the money for our new uniforms. And just to kind of note too that band is required, marching band is required for all band students. One of our largest fundraisers is the annual Band Invitational, held in the fall, which brings as many as 16 high school bands around the state to our school. This event, while it does use school facilities, provides funding that directly enables Milton High School students to participate in a robust and successful band program. Furthermore, it raises the profile of MIHS among other schools around the state. The school district of Milton could not fully fund its band program without the activities of the Band Parents Association. We feel that the proposal to change the Milton Band Parents Association fees for facility use as an outside community group is essentially double dipping into the very funds that enable MHS to have such an amazing band program. While charging fees to cover the budget deficits is certainly tempting, fees are by their very nature regressive, quickly leading to a community of haves and have-nots, of groups that can pay the fees and those who cannot. Public education is a great equalizer in our society, and moving to a fee-based method of funding school and student activities seriously undermines the function of public education.
Okay, thank you. Next that signed up is Liz Webb.
Hello, my name is Liz Webb, and I'm representing Milton Youth Basketball, as well as my personal self at the end. Milton Youth Basketball was disheartened to learn about this proposal, but we understand the desire to create funding for the district. We feel that this quick revenue stream falls short in thinking about the ripple effect to our community and to the long-term effect of our youth. As a nonprofit organization, we are not entirely sure how this will financially impact us, as there's room for interpretation within the proposal and what constitutes an event and where we fall within a tier. But at a minimum, we anticipate this costing us at least $10,000 a year. Because that is a significant fee, we will have to either make choices of hosting events in the future, passing that cost onto our participants, all of which are Milton School District taxpayers, or start to cut services or resources where in the past we've given back to the community. Our events bring revenue directly into the community. This past year, we hosted 5 events at the high school, each day that roughly brought in 1,200 people to our community. Our concessions are fully supplied local by the Pig, Mr. Mike's, Pizza, Casey's, Subway. Other community businesses such as gas stations, restaurants, and other small businesses benefit due to this influx of people. If we are unable to host these events due to the increasing costs, other community businesses will suffer as well. Historically, MYB has given back to the district. A short list of some of the items in recent history are a scoreboard in both the new gym, the old gym, purchasing 2 shooting machines, purchasing an adjustable and safer hoops at our elementary schools, purchasing uniforms at the middle school, purchasing drinking fountains, countless scholarships, at least 2 for the past 25 years to graduating seniors. We have also partnered each year with the High School Boosters Program, whose 100% of their profits each year go back into the high school program. If we do not have these events or are forced to use all of our extra funds to cover this facility fee, these extra services will be stopped. Is the district then willing to take on the cost for such needed items? We have great facilities throughout the district. We love showing them off and hosting events. MYB families all live here who want these resources to be around for a long time. So when we are using these facilities, especially at the MYB hosted tournaments, we took great care in our setup, maintenance during the events, and our post cleanup to make sure the facilities were shown respect. As an organization, we did 100% of the setup and post cleanup events. I personally can say we made sure that the school was school ready. We swept the stairs, the bleachers, the floors, the bathrooms, the wooden Milton logo steps. We wiped down tables, put the chairs all back in order. The bathrooms were stocked with toilet paper and the seats wiped down. All 18 plus trash cans on that side of the building were fully emptied and lined. We 100% left that place better than we found it. As an organization, we took that on. Now, as an organization, if we are going to be in turn charged for this space, our expectation would shift. While we would still treat the facility with the utmost respect, we wouldn't feel such need to set up, clean up, and do the maintenance. We would have to coordinate with the high school custodial staff to communicate our needs for such setup and cleanup. Are they equipped for this additional workload?
Are you nearly done, Liz? You're bumping up against me.
Yeah, sorry. I'll skip my personal statement. In closing, this proposal feels quick and short-sighted. While we understand the need, we think there should be more collaboration between school and local youth organizations. The ripple effect between our community and our youth hasn't been thoroughly vetted. If our other organizations, or if our organization and other youth organizations are no longer donating equipment and resources to our youth and schools, where would the resources come from? We would like to look for ways to offer more opportunity, not creating additional barriers.
Thank you. And fourth that signed up is Doug Van Horn.
How's everybody doing tonight? Sorry, I wasn't prepared. I got this thrown at me last minute, but I'm a Milton Storm board member. And so I just wanted to represent Milton Storm. We're a newer organization. We have 108 kids, and we've been doing it for about 7 years, I think. But we're in the same boat like everybody else. I'm also a band parent, show choir parent, basketball parent, so I'm with everybody out there. The fees are kind of a surprise to us. We do a lot of things for the community. We give back, we donate everything too. But what this is going to do for us is probably cost us in the upwards of $12,000 to $14,000 if we're looking at it correctly. We don't know that for sure, and I guess that we just want to make sure that we're getting communication and everything on that. But obviously, that's a big portion of our funds too. So it's really going to affect us, and it's going to just come out of the parents' pocketbooks because that's where everything seems to come. So, anyways, I just wanted to kind of voice a little bit of a opinion. I don't have a huge opinion on it either way, but I wanted to make sure that the storm board was heard. So, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, that was all the folks that had signed up or asked to speak, so we will move on. Next on the agenda is our superintendent update from Rich, Red Hawk highlights.
Yeah, with this being the second board meeting of the month, we're going to get updates from our principals on the great things that are happening across their schools. As they're coming up to the podium, I just want to highlight that this time of year there are a lot of things happening in all of our schools. Not only academic things, but field trips, concerts, some fun end of the year activities that I've been fortunate to be able to see in a lot of our different schools. So we'll call on our principals to give updates. Looks like Marcia's going to go first.
Yes, I am representing all of the 4K3 buildings, and we have had a lot. We've had a lot with some family fundraisers happening in the district. Lots of colorful activity at some schools, some cows pooping in the yard, all kinds of great fun had by all. Our teachers have worked incredibly hard this year in implementing wonders and coming to a full culmination of that. We had some resources that we're going to be able to send home with our students so that they can have their reading momentum continue to grow over the summer. All of our third graders are busy preparing for that big transition to the big school over at Northside. They've all participated in different Google Meets, meeting with Northside staff and having the opportunity to learn more about their new school, as well as having some visits over there. We are supporting our third graders to finish strong in their third grade year before they burst with excitement for their new journey. And as Rich mentioned, it is field trip season, especially in the elementary world. So our students, all of our students have been able to participate in a minimum of 2 field trips this year across the district. And May is that super busy time when many of them take place due to the nice weather. So we will have students venturing out to zoos and area farms and area parks and the Milton House. And so all of that will be happening within this next month. 12 days.
Thanks for the Schwingles. From our side, a couple of updates. Third grade transition night was a couple weeks ago. We had a tremendous turnout. So like Mr. Schwingles had shared, we beam into classrooms, we talk about our school, but really the magic happens when the families and kids come over and get to experience it for the first time. After listening to like our 15-minute spiel, kids were eager to kind of go tour the school and may or may not have been dragging around parents as they were touring the school. So I think they were feeling quite comfortable in their new space. Shout out to all the families, community, and board members that attended our track and field event earlier this May.
Fantastic sportsmanship and spirited competition, to say the least. We had wonderful weather for the event. It was awesome. Shout out to Mrs. Rue, Mr. I, the high school staff, the office cadets. Thanks for sharing them. Mr. Billhorn really helped make the event more fun for our Northsiders. Kids are really anxious to see if they medaled or not, and the results are going to have to wait until June 8th. So you're going to get tested patients at Northside. In addition to that, I want to highlight our Family Fun Night this Thursday and cordially invite the board and the community. It's a really fun event from 5:30 to 7 o'clock. It's a great send-off for the school year. We have a buy one, get one book fair. We have a 3-on-3 basketball tournament, multiple inflatables, DJ music, and oh my goodness, it's a really fun event. Last year's turnout was tremendous, and it's all put on by friends of Northside, our parent group. So I want to give a shout out to them. And then lastly, this field trip season, we have a big one this Friday, partnering with the Future Farmers of America to Glacier Edge Dairy for our 4th graders. So they're all going to learn about agribusiness and partner with our agricultural teachers from the high school. So shout out to Mr. Lee, Mrs. Skimp, and the entire Metcalf family for hosting this year. Really trying to make the event fun and accessible for all of our kids. So they'll be in the field on Friday. It looks to be good weather for the whole week.
Good evening. So first I'll start off highlighting music in our schools. We had our last choir concert of the year last week, and tomorrow night is our final band concert. And it sure is a pleasure to see where the kids start as middle school musicians and where they end as middle school musicians. So shout out to Miss Landrum and Miss Westland for their work with our student musicians. Field trip season for us, the first field trip in quite a while from middle school students. 8th graders went to 1 of 6 locations. Kids got some choice in where they wanted to go, and so ranging from Milwaukee, Madison, or Palmyra, the 6 different field trips were very successful. We plan to continue that. Thank you to our parent group for helping sponsor that field trip. We also had all of our 8th graders go to Black Hawk Tech to have all 4 rotations of welding, HVAC, CNC, and IT. And that's just a great springboard into their high school career to learn about some additional opportunities down the road and in our trades. For student leadership, our web leaders recently raised $1,000 for 2 area organizations, Sleep in Heavenly Peace and 1649. The web leader applications were recently collected, over 90 applications for 38 positions. So that is a leadership group that continues to grow within our building. Our I Can Help group made 18 tie blankets to be delivered to a children's hospital. This Friday, we have our Unity track meet up at the high school, which is a really, really exciting part of a culminating event with our Unity team. That is at 1:15. And finally, this past Friday afternoon, we had our transition activity afternoon. We tried something new this year, and so from 4:15 to 6:15, we had our current 6th graders and current 7th graders do some activities together, including some tours by the 7th graders, and it was a good indication of what next year will bring, because it was a very exciting night and things went really well. So we're excited about the end of the school year, but also what the future holds as well. Thank you.
All right, good evening. Finally, at the high school, obviously it's spring, it's a busy time of the year. We are in the process of beginning to wrap up the spring sports season, so big shout outs to Mr. Spivak and all the spring coaches on what has been a successful seasons, and thanks to Go Rightway for getting everybody there, and Mr. Science and crew for having the fields ready. Spring is always interesting. We've got some beautiful weather right now, but it's always kind of interesting beginning of the year. Some quick updates. 8 of the 10 varsity tennis players actually advanced to sectionals. The boys varsity tennis have a very tennis program. Had a very successful spring. Girls and boys track teams are both at the regionals tonight. Boys coming off a 3rd place finish at the conference and one of their higher finishes recently. Kids are doing a great job. And our softball team, the girls softball team, with a 21-3 record, currently ranked 7th in the state. They begin postseason on Thursday, so we're very excited for them and the great work they've been doing. Just a quick overview of some of the athletics this spring. With music, we have a choir concert tonight. The band concert is this Wednesday. Academically, we just finished up a week ago the advanced placement testing. We're not our highest number test taken. We continue to have very strong participation in the advanced placement program. Kids and staff working very hard to prepare for those exams. Discovery Democracy just got back from Washington, D.C. Mr. Yauk had another successful year with students out there. I did not catch the total number of interviews, but the students that do it's a working seminar. It's not just a trip. It's working. Each student does between 4 to 6 different interviews while they're out there, experts, and a lot of learning that happens really prepares students for college. And with that, then too, we just also finished the academic and career plans. My thanks to the board members. We had some that came and sat on the ACP panels. And that was again where each senior gives their final academic and career plan. They share that with their homeroom teacher, community member, and a staff member. And at some tables we had as many as 5 or 6 adults because it's so popular. So we're very grateful for the community who want to come and listen to our students as they share what they're planning to do. And then finally, June 4th is graduation. We're very excited. It's the best day at Milton High School of the year. It's better than Christmas. It is graduation Sunday, June 4th. And at 2 p.m. we will be graduating the class of 2023 again. All board members are welcome to attend. It starts at 2 o'clock. We actually have a board picture at 1:30. So yeah, those who are coming, if you have not already, let Ms. Jenner know. We're excited to have everybody be part of the ceremony. Thank you.
Very good. Anything else, Rich? No, that's it. All right. Okay, and 3 is a update of sorts on a school board legal workshop, and I guess I'll do that. Just to let folks know what we've been up to. We met a week ago. Was it Tuesday night, I think, if I remember right? And we had Shayna Lewis come down and work with us. Shayna's our legal counsel, works for a law firm in Madison, Brennan Lewis and Lacey, I believe it is. She's worked with the district for a number of years and guides us as needed, time to time. This was more of a learning opportunity for the board. We had Shayna come down and talk through board roles and responsibilities is kind of the general title, I guess, of what she talked to us about. But in a real workshop format, it was very interactive. We were able to ask questions, and as she worked through her agenda, she gave some examples, and we all viewed that through the lens of our jobs here in Milton and asked questions pertinent to situations that arise, et cetera. So on behalf of the board, we thanked her for her time, and I felt it was very, very worthwhile. I don't know if anyone else had any thoughts, but I think that captures it for the most part. Okay, and then we'll roll on to 4 as an HR committee report from Rick.
Okay, thank you, Joe. The HR committee has met twice since our last board meeting. We met on May 10th and May 17th. The first item is discussion and possible action on other post-employment benefits and future options for administrators and supervisors. On April 10th of this year, the board approved changes to post-retirement benefits for the teachers and support staff groups, with a plan to follow this up with changes to the benefits for the administrators and supervisors. The HR committee met on May 10th and May 17th to review the current administrator and supervisor benefit. The proposed benefit follows the same framework as the teacher and support staff benefit while keeping benefit values similar to the existing benefit. Tonight's approval and action will complete the changes for all benefit employee groups. And one other thing, a couple other things to mention, that as with the previous groups, anyone who falls into tier 2 would have the option to jump to tier 3 if they desired. And I would also like to just give a shout out to Linda and Sarah from Key Benefits. Their expertise was very helpful throughout this entire process. The committee feels that what we've brought to the board tonight meet some of the goals that we had tried to accomplish with our first group, such as not making large changes to people who are post-retirement, keeping the plan simple, but also keeping the plan sustainable in the long term. Chris isn't here tonight, but Rich, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
I think that just noting that in board docs, there's both a memo on that topic, and I think Rick kind of hit on the highlights from the memo, but I want people to be aware that a more detailed memo is there. And then also the actual proposed plan is listed in board docs, and Carly, if you pull that up, you see that's very similar in format to the plan that was approved earlier for the teacher group and the support staff group. Maintaining a similar format, but keeping the structure of the benefits in line with what we're moving away from, I guess is how I would describe it. And a similar process that was used for the other employee groups. And the proposal is that would go into effect beginning July 1st of 2023. And there's a recommended action that's attached to this agenda.
Rich, just a quick question, and this question isn't specific to this branch of the plan, but the plan for all employees. On the tier 3, for those who contribute to the 401k already, it's my understanding that you do not need to make an additional set of contributions for the potential match. It's already baked into, if you will, their contributions if they're already doing that, and for employees who are not, if they start, then they potentially would earn the match.
Yeah, if I'm understanding your question correctly, and if I don't get at it with my answer, let me know. What Dave's referring to in tier 3 for all of the employee groups, part of the updated benefit is moving away from providing medical insurance for retirees to a 403B system where employees earn funds in their, or the district contributes funds to a 403B for employees, and there's a employer contribution, and then there's also a 50% match. And we do have some employees in all of our employee groups that already put some money away into a 403B on their own. And if I'm understanding your question correctly, Dave, you're asking if the district's 50% match would be put in place for donations that people are already doing moving forward. They would have to put away that amount of their own money plus an additional amount. Is that?
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
that would be true. The employer match would be on any funds that the employee puts into their own 403B up to that maximum that's in place. And the maximum that's in place varies depending on how many years of service the employee has in the district. So it's a way to provide incentive for folks to remain in the district, to provide a stronger contribution from the district for the people who have been or continue to be employees in the district.
I'm going to make a motion to approve the other post-employment benefits plan for administrators and supervisors as presented in the proposed administrator and supervisor post-employment plan design effective July 1st, 2023.
Second.
Thank you. That motion from Rick is seconded by Jennifer to adopt the other post-employment benefits for administrators and supervisors that would mirror to a great degree what we've already done for the other employee groups. Questions on the motion? All in favor of approval signify with aye.
Aye.
And opposed? That clearly passes.
Okay, next on the agenda is the 2023-24 support staff letters of employment update. For the past month, the administrators and the board have been planning to make budget reductions using attrition to avoid layoffs. It has been a goal that the budget reductions for the coming year will be made without laying off any employees who wish to return for the coming school year. The HR department will be sending out a letter to all active support staff informing them that the district plans to employ them next year. The letters will be sent before the end of the school year. The plan is to send letters of employment after the board meeting on June 12th, 2023, when the HR team presents wage increases for support staff. So it is an attachment in board docs with an example of the letter that will be sent out. This is just for information only. No action to be taken on this tonight, just kind of an FYI.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So on that, so what you're saying is there were no jobs eliminated because those, or no folks who want a job were not able to get one because the roles were, there were attrition. So if someone wanted a job, were they still able to get one? I'm just making sure that that's what you were saying.
Yeah, I can make sure that's clear for everyone. Our goal for all of our employee groups was to go into our budget reductions for the coming year without having any layoffs unless we absolutely had to. And if you recall, for our teacher group, the board approved at a previous meeting issuing contract letters of employment to all of our returning teachers who haven't resigned or retired. And this is that same thing for our support staff. Although we are looking at reducing some positions, there are enough resignations and retirements in that group to be able to find a place for everyone. And we look to limit the amount of reassignments as much as possible, but while also making sure that we are not needing to provide any layoffs. So the process for that coming up is that the HR department would issue those letters of employment to all of our support staff who aren't resigning or retiring. And then over the next few weeks, as we're finalizing those budget reductions, we'll be letting people know if they are going to be assigned to a different position than they're in right now.
Thank you.
There is some more conversation coming up in this meeting in agenda items 5E and 6B around budget planning for next year too. So we'll talk a little bit more about it in those agenda items too.
Any other questions on that? Okay, the last item is discussion and possible action on the 2023-24 teacher hard to fill compensation. As part of our staff compensation discussions for all the employee groups, we annually determine whether there is a need for any market adjustments. This year, administration has identified the need to make market adjustments for certain teaching positions. This can be accomplished through modifications to our current hard-to-fill tier system. The administration team shared concerns about the ability to fill certain positions and proposed increases to the current tiers, as well as identifying an additional position for consideration. There is the option is included in board docs there, but more specifically, the proposal has the following changes. Increase hard-to-fill tiers 1, 2, and 3 by $500. Move occupational therapists and physical therapists to tier 3 from tier 1. Add special education teachers to tier 1. Add hard-to-fill stipends for employees placed on the new matrix. And that option is included in board docs, which has the exact the positions with the values on those tiers.
One thing that I would add to that is just share that part of our process for determining salaries and benefits for all of our employee groups annually is to look at what comparable districts are offering and look at any necessary market adjustments. With the teacher group, a lot of districts have a lot of different formats for how they determine salaries for their teacher group. And so when we look at the need to make any market adjustments, it's built into both our teacher compensation model, it's built into the negotiations that the board will be doing coming up with the Milton Education Association around the base wage for the teacher group, but it's also built into these hard to fill positions. And I think the biggest change, in addition to increasing the hard to fill stipends by $500 for each of the 3 tiers, and that would be in place for people who we currently have, who already have that stipend built into their salary, but now they would get a $500 increase, but also for people that we hire moving forward. But the other biggest change is moving special education teachers into that hard to fill classification. And as we look at that, we consider how many applicants we get for positions, whether those applicants are licensed or not. In looking at the data, over the past year, we've averaged just barely over 2 licensed applicants per open position in special education. So that's a pretty significant change from even as recently as 4 or 5 years ago. We used to have considerably more applicants than that. Other school districts are coming after special ed teachers. There's a lot of competition in that field and in some other fields. And at times we need to fill positions with people that have emergency licenses from the state that aren't fully licensed, but they'll get a 1-year reprieve to be able to finalize their license. And it's an ongoing concern across the state in that area, as well as the other areas that are highlighted.
So Rich, so you said our current special ed teachers would qualify for this
Yes.
stipend?
Yes.
And do you feel that that's competitive to be able to retain what we have?
I think it definitely helps with our retention efforts. I think anything that we can do to make sure that we're competitive overall in our salaries and benefits. But in this case, in part, this case is specific to those positions that are identified as hard to fill because there are a significant lack of applicants out there.
And Rich, so these amounts do not get added to the base wage, there are supplemental income on the contract?
Correct. They are not part of the base wage. For our teaching staff, their salaries are made up by the base wage, by any step movement that they've had based on their years of experience, by any lane movement, either in the old model by professional development use, and in the new model by accumulating higher education credits, and then also by these hard to fill stipends.
I'm going to make a motion to approve increasing tiers 1, 2, and 3 by $500 each, apply the hard to fill tiers to the new teacher matrix, and move occupational therapists and physical therapists to tier 3, and add special education teachers to tier 1 effective July 1, 2023.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion on the floor brought by Rick, seconded by Dave, as you just heard him outline there, to modify our stipends and classifications for hard to fill positions. Questions on the motion? All in favor of approval signify with aye.
Aye.
And opposed? And clearly passes.
That's it, Joe.
Very good, thank you, Rick. We will roll on. 5 on the list is a joint meeting that we'll get a report on from the Finance and Transportation and Safety Committees.
All right, well, I'll kickstart the first couple items off with transportation. This 5A is kind of a topic of annual review. As stated here, Go Right Way and the district have an opportunity to review and potentially extend our contract annually. We had a discussion on a variety of things and kind of piggybacking on the hard to fill positions from Rick's report, the challenges in providing transportation and right ways challenges and delivering things just with all of the various things going on the last several years. I think the consensus was, and Mrs. Kramer, correct me if as necessary here, but I think the staff indicated that Go Right Way made a lot of efforts to try to do everything they could to make sure routes are filled, expectations within contracts are fulfilled, and just generally display a really good faith effort in delivering what we hope they will deliver. The process for the contract is underway in negotiating that. This will come back to us here in a future meeting to look at more specifically, but a good discussion was had, just kind of a preliminary, are they delivering on the expectations, and so far the discussion on that was yes, and more to come on this topic. The other item that we discussed was the BIC program. As you all will recall, this has been an item that has been out for discussion amongst the Transportation Committee here the last couple of years. As you know, the BIC program essentially, in certain circumstances where a student or students would not necessarily qualify for transportation under the normal Go Right Way district rules, there are circumstances where a family will have an opportunity to essentially buy a seat under certain circumstances so that transportation can be provided for their child either one way or both ways, depending on their needs. The overall cost of providing transportation, if you spread out over the district, is approximately $800+ per student. And so what the BIC program does is offsets part of the cost of delivering that service. And so the discussion for this evening is, you'll see it in the memo, the historical difference between where it was and where it has been and how many people have participated. But the discussion today is to, again, keep pace essentially with offsetting a component of the cost of delivering the service. So Ms. Kramer, I don't know if you have any commentary as far as that goes, or Rich, otherwise certainly any discussion or questions from the board as well.
I think I'll just point out, Dave, you referred to it, but Carly has the memo up, and that memo is also found in inboard docs, and it highlights the past 3 years, the costs for the BIAC program and the number of riders for the BIAC program. And the proposed increase would be to increase those current rates by $15 for a one-way trip, and then comparable amounts for a round trip and the family maximum.
Any questions on the part of the board? If none, I would move to increase the annual BIAC program round trip fee to $270, one-way fee to $135, and increase the family cap to $540.
I second that.
Thank you. That motion from Dave, seconded by Rick, as you just heard him outline to adjust our BIAC fees. Questions from the board? All in favor of approval signify with aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Thank you. All right, C on the committee report is budget planning. Are we gonna tag team that one?
I'll take a swing at it. I think it's,
It's discussion and possible action on the facility use fees. I think is next.
Not in board doc.
My board doc shows budget planning as C. We can do it whichever order you want, but
mine does not. Where do we want to go?
mine says C. Let's go with mine.
Was budget planning?
Budget planning.
Okay. So like Dave mentioned, we did have a pretty full meeting, 5 board members between the 2 committees, several administrators, it was jam-packed, full of information. So skipping to C, which is budget planning. Administration is currently working with a combination of the following for the 23-24 budget: deductions and expenses, increases in revenue, and one-time funds. One of the goals of our planning includes using attrition to avoid layoffs. There is an agenda item on tonight with a plan to use the remaining federal ESSER 3 funds to cover the Apple device payment. This allows the district to move those dollars back to the general fund to help offset the 23-24 budget deficit. That's what I got for budget planning.
No action on tonight. That's obviously just kind of an FYI, so everybody stays with us on the timing of this as it evolves.
And just the one thing I would share on that is that I've gone out to each school and had staff meetings, and we've gotten feedback from staff members. We also had a online option for staff members to share information about items to consider when looking at budget reductions, and it's a combination of ways that we can increase revenue as a district and ways that we could reduce costs to have a balanced budget for the coming year. And as John had shared, agenda item 6B around the use of the ESSER funds is related to that topic.
Okay, any other questions on that? All right, now my letter D says discussion and possible action on the 23-24 facility use fees. So we will transition to that, and I don't know, we don't have a specific order here. Rich, do you want to give a little background on, or John, you want to give?
John can give an overview of the
Okay.
committee conversation.
Yeah, so according to the board policy 7510, the use of district facilities reflects the board's belief that school facilities should be made available for non-school use. When this policy was adopted in 2017, the fee schedule was not updated. In fact, it's quite possible it's been 15 plus years since the fee schedule was updated. The administration began work last fall to develop administrative guidelines for implementation of this policy. In addition to procedures, the guidelines include facility use fees that are presented to the board for approval tonight. The purpose of charging a fee is to offset the cost of the use of school facilities.
All right. You want to give a background on what the administrator side of this looked like?
Yeah, I can share a little bit on that. The process began back in the fall, and Jeff Spivak, Jeremy Bohorn, and Stephen Schanz worked to look at comparable districts and what they charge for facility fees, kind of what our history has been. And there was some inconsistency across our district, and we wanted to make sure that we had a process that was used at all of our schools, for all of our facilities, and was consistent. So I know a few people have mentioned a tie to the operating referendum, and this, where I'm going to reinforce that this work is work that started back in the fall. It was well overdue to come up with something that was more consistent and more in line with what we're seeing in other districts. It is designed to help offset the cost of the use of school facilities, but we know that it doesn't completely offset that cost. But we also know that, and in particular with the operating referendum not passing, we have extremely tight budgets moving forward, not just for next year, but in future years. As I shared earlier, we've gotten some feedback from both staff groups and from parent groups about looking for ways to increase our revenues, and our increasing fees is one way to limit that, the cost of having the school ready for the next day in those areas. I think one of the things that is important to note, and you can see it in the document that's available on board docs, is that there's really two different parts to this. There's the ongoing use in the fees, and it's described on that second page. There's a table around hourly rates, and that's split up into three different tiers. And the tier 1 groups don't have any charge for their regular use, and tier 1 groups are described here as being school-sponsored activities and school-affiliated groups, Milton Rec Department, civic groups, nonprofit groups, and community youth groups. And then it gives some more examples of the people that fall into those areas. So the proposal isn't to charge those groups for their regularly hourly use. Then in tier 2 is private use by local organizations or groups, and those include individual private local groups, exclusive or private sports organizations, local adult education groups, or government agencies in some cases. And there's an hourly rate depending on which of our facilities they would like to use. And then there's a third tier for non-local groups and for-profit organizations, where those are activities that charge fees or admissions for private gain or profit, that have a benefit for their own members, that are individual private non-local groups, local for-profit organizations, or non-local civic organizations, and non-local non-profit organizations. And it's really important to everybody, and the board has mentioned this multiple times, and our admin team has spoken to this, but it's really important that our facilities are put to good use. Obviously, the intended use and the main use of all of our facilities, both our buildings and our grounds, are for student activities. But we also want to make sure when our students aren't using our facilities that they are made available. But we also want to be alert that there is a cost to the district to maintain those facilities, getting them ready for events, and getting them ready for school the next day after these events. So it's something that it's brought as a recommendation for the board. Certainly can understand the concerns that were raised by some of the folks in public comment about the impact that this has on outside groups. And a large part of the conversation at the committee meeting was around the difference between when a group is operating in tier 1 and when they're operating outside of tier 1. And I'll use if it's a youth sports team, if they're coming in for their youth sports practices, there is no charge for their use in those practices, even though there is some cost to the district for utilities costs and preparation and cleaning costs. But that not charging those groups really encourages them to utilize our facilities. When those same groups are hosting large weekend tournaments that bring in teams from other districts and fans from other districts, then it becomes a case where it's no longer operating as a nonprofit local group. It's a profit-making endeavor for that group. So rather than charging an hourly rate based on the tier 3 cost, built into the other portion of this, and Carly, if you scroll down on it, are the special events rates, and they are different depending on different types of special events, whether they're indoors or outdoors. I think a large part of the questions that folks have had are about the indoor athletic tournament events, and described on each of those, and I won't read through them, but described on each of those are the typical event setup and consumables that are used during those different events. And those do vary from event to event. Some events utilize more space in the district, some utilize more cleanup time than others, and there's been an attempt to incorporate that into what's being presented to the board. And certainly be able to, either myself or Jeff, Jeremy, Stephen would be available to answer any questions that board members have.
Stephen, I have a question. These dollar amounts, they're big dollar amounts.
Correct.
Can you talk about how you came up with these? What kind of research did you do?
Sure.
How did you end up with these numbers?
So when you look at kind of the large pieces of the puzzle that I tried to grab for costs that are associated with supporting these events, I tried to pick out the bigger ones that we could. I didn't want to get down to every single cost of every single event. Like Rich said, we kind of tried to capture everything kind of as an average of what it all takes. So, you know, as you look at the brief description, so like consumables are one thing that we always just let people use. You know, that could be anything from like toilet paper, paper towel, soap products, you know, anything that's really used during the event, you know, we supply. And obviously there's a cost to those. Services, and when I describe services, certain events that we host require, say, a 20-yard dumpster to be placed for trash pickup. You know, we schedule that 20-yard dumpster to be placed there, and that's a cost that the district has operationally to take care of. When there's a youth sporting tournament on the weekend, you know, we have contracted snow removal, for example, at the high school. We have to make our snow removal people aware when tournaments are taking place, and then they have to, you know, keep the lots cleared, salted, all that good stuff the best they can. Otherwise, you know, if we don't do that, that's a liability that the district has to take on, for example. So that's another cost that we have just always provided to ensure safe entry for those people. And as they mentioned, there's a lot of people that come to the facility, so we definitely want to continue to do that. One of the larger projects that we've taken on over the last, I'll call it 10 years, is getting control of our HVAC and energy consuming systems. When we have stuff scheduled on the weekends, we quote unquote occupy those spaces, meaning that we're bringing in adequate fresh air to all these spaces, and we're operating all of our large scale HVAC equipment to make sure everything's comfortable, safe, and healthy for the people that are using the facilities. And just the labor, you know, a lot of our youth groups do a great job of cleaning up after themselves, but there is a different level of cleaning that we have to do after the fact to make sure that the building, specifically the spaces that they use, are quote unquote school ready. We sanitize, disinfect all that good stuff that we do in restrooms. On Monday morning, during those times, we just have our group of custodians tackle that and make sure that we're ready to go. So that's just kind of a summary of the real high level pieces that go into specifically like that indoor tournament one. A lot of the other items in there, like youth or lining for football, soccer, lacrosse, all that good stuff, those have been agreements that have already been in place for many years. This is just a formal way of capturing those. So like I said, those have already been in place. We're working with soccer and football and lacrosse, for example. We already do that. It's just formally placing them on this list. So did that answer your question?
It's very helpful, thank you. Good. I have another question, I'm not sure who it's for. Based on what we heard at public comment, it seems like there's some question about what constitutes an event. Can we get some clarity on me, or these, I don't know.
I'll speak to it, and this might be a Jeff step in if there's things to add to what I share. I think our tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 that are described there are hourly rates, and one of the most common users of our facilities is the Milton Youth Basketball, so I'll use that as an example. Lance Knudsen with MREC helps schedule our gym space, and that group utilizes gym space at all of our different schools when it's available. It's our process for doling out gym space are for instructional uses first, and then school groups, and then non-school groups, but local non-school groups like Milton Youth Basketball. And so Lance had shared that approximately 60 hours a week are taken up in our facilities by Milton Youth Basketball for practices for their teams. That's not an event. That's a tier 1 no charge for that group. The events are items that are larger in scale, not the regular hourly use of the facilities, and there's a description of each of those listed there. So I don't know if that describes it very well, or Jeff, if there's more that you want to add to what puts a group into that event list. And as Jeff is coming up, I think I shared it before, but to continue with that Milton Youth Basketball analogy, when it's not just their group, but when it's a large tournament over the weekend, that puts even more pressure on our building and grounds team and on our facilities. And that no longer is a tier 1 event because they are raising funds for their group at that event. And a couple folks shared that group and many others do an incredible job of giving back to the school district, and they really do. I think that all of the groups that spoke, I think they're spot on in their willingness to make donations out of their profits to the school district, and also donate their time for different activities. And that's something that's really valuable to our school district and very much appreciated. But it doesn't negate the idea that they're running a for-profit event for their group during that time. Jeff?
Well, you did a really good job of the intent of that definition of event if we're looking at like indoor athletic tournaments / events. For example, like youth basketball, if you don't mind the example continuing. We have them on the books already for 4 large-scale tournaments over weekends this winter. That was kind of the intent of the definition of event or tournament that we had. I know we have baseball tournaments in the summer, but they're those larger scale events or tournaments that bring in a lot of people, a lot of teams, groups from outside that put extra stress on our facilities. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess I just want to make sure that these definitions or these specifics get communicated to these groups if this passes tonight. So
yeah, for sure.
One other piece of that is that what the board is approving is the fee schedule, and that's required to come. Any changes in fees are required to come to the board for approval. The specifics of the facility use guidelines will be building into some administrative guidelines and having available then for all outside groups when they use our facilities.
And just a further item of clarification, and maybe piggybacking on kind of Rick's thought there, playing a game is different than having an event. So a team from Milton plays a team from Edgerton, that's not an event, that's different. It's when it becomes a ticketed item, essentially, that the definition changes. Just like I said, we've talked about this, but I just want to make sure everyone understands. Yeah. Just simply playing a game does not fall under the umbrella of an event.
That is the intent, correct?
Yeah, and the intent really is on that definition of tier 3, it's for-profit groups. So if they're charging the other team to come and play, or charging admission, then it becomes a tier 3 event.
Jeff, can you walk us through how this process works? Like if basketball gets that weekend event or baseball team gets to the field, like is there a system that they go to, or how do we keep track of that? And then how does the...
Yeah, so outside of the fee element, and Rich kind of talked about this, the fee part of this administrative guideline is truly a smaller, just one piece of the 10-page document we put together. What we really wanted to establish was a unified system for requesting facilities within the district. Right now, Lance Knudsen operates our school facility scheduler. He's kind of the point person that a lot of our groups go through him. Groups can also become requesters and request personally through the system. I know for like a lot of our big stuff, we have to work, we have like our high school scheduling and all that stuff that works in cohesion with the facilities we provide with youth groups. So like I said, we are working out 8-9 months in advance to coordinate that stuff. So a huge majority of that work falls on Lance, and he does a really good job of working with our groups and working with me to facilitate everybody's facility needs.
Okay. And most of these events, practices, weekend tournament, there's in essence zero cost to these organizations. Are any of them getting any kind of bill at the end right now?
No, so like the majority of the groups that came today, and that's fantastic, you're gonna fall under that tier 1. If you're a youth sporting organization that serves Milton youth, you're a tier 1 group, right? So for practice time, for one-off games, if we have like a league game or something, there would be no charge for those organizations for that time.
And one of the things I want to make sure that you had mentioned, Jeff, that if you're in local youth sports that serves Milton youth, you're in tier 1. One thing that's different in tier 2 is if it is it's described here, like a private local group or exclusive or a private sports organization. So if they have tryouts or they include students from other districts as part of their group, then it's no longer a local group.
Go ahead, I'll let you.
I just have a quick question about the location. So are we currently able to rent all of these spaces now, or do we add any locations?
Well, when we added onto the school, we added a bunch of locations. But all of the new locations within the district are in the facility scheduler, that software. So you can rent almost any facility or any room or, in the district right now. Not rent, request. Rent was the wrong word.
And a big part of the update is the moving to our schools as a system for everyone rather than a paper and pencil. And this was part of the inconsistency from one school to the other. Sometimes people would contact the principal or contact the building admin assistant and set something up, and then other folks wouldn't, the communication sometimes wouldn't be clear on what that group's needs were. So moving to our schools today not only streamlines that process, but it also allows us to keep accurate data on how often and which groups are utilizing our facilities. If we would bring a report, an annual report to the board on facility use.
That's my next question. Thank you.
Cool.
I do have a few questions. So you had highlighted, and I just want to bring that up. So Milton Youth Football and Milton Youth Soccer are already paying these fees. This
Correct.
is no change, just putting it in writing.
And that's correct.
Okay, so that's whereas where we heard some public comment on the basketball side for those tournaments or even wrestling, were those are being provided at zero charge or zero cost?
Yes.
So, okay, so that, and I know, listening to the public comment, I'm trying to understand, are we just trying to cover our costs, or are we actually generating a profit here? And from what I'm hearing you guys say is we're just covering the expenses we're already incurring. So the no snow on weekends, would you actually not plow if we did not have an event on a weekend?
We would definitely, for example, wait until like a snow event is done.
Okay,
So like if snow starts at 6 a.m. on a Saturday and it's supposed to stop at 4 p.m. on a Saturday, and we would let the whole thing play out. Let's say there's an event during the day, I pretty much have to have a vehicle there taking care of that to ensure safe entrance, for example.
okay. And then the cost of the dumpsters, are those flat fees or?
It's a flat fee plus by how many tons you have in the dumpster.
Okay, and is there an estimate about how much that runs? Okay,
A dumpster could be anywhere from $300 to $450.
okay. And then if we weren't running the event, would the HVAC be on at a lower rate? Is it now or would not be on at all?
So it would shift to an occupied set point, meaning it doesn't run unless it, just like at your house, it drops down to 60 degrees, then it would just keep it at the bare minimum with, zero fresh air exchange, but occupying it, bring it up to supporting that many people.
Gotcha, okay. No, and then, okay.
Stephen, I might not be remembering this correctly, but it's kind of tied to Tracy's question, and I want to make sure that I'm accurate on this. I think at the committee meeting, you said that in the winter, 1 month of utilities costs at the high school was about $30,000. Am I remembering that correctly, or am I off there?
That's pretty, so between natural gas and electricity at the high school in a given month, when you add the two together, it's between $35,000 and $45,000 a month.
And then the only other question I have is, so when I look at the tiers, so again, like a Milton Youth Basketball, they're inclusive, they're, they fall into that tier 1. Whereas if it's you try out and if you don't make the team, that's considered more individual or exclusive organization?
Yeah, and I think we have to work through some of those definitions with some of our groups, right? The bottom line is, the tiered system, there's gonna be some gray area that we're gonna have to work through with groups, and that's something Lance and I plan on doing, to work hand in hand with our youth groups to find the correct tier and be fair and accurate with that.
Rich, you mentioned this in passing, but I just want to ask the question again. Having a fee schedule for the usage of facilities is not something exclusive to Milton. This is not atypical in school districts as they try to recover costs for providing space to various community users or non-community users.
Yeah, I would just
I think you said that. Did I have that
I would
correct?
say yes to that, and Jeff has done some of the research on that, so I'll let him.
Yeah, so as Rich referenced earlier, the work on this started in the fall, and we have comps from a lot of Badger Conference schools and their facility use documents. Janesville, we didn't get a lot out of that one, but we did a lot of research, to be perfectly honest with you, to make sure that when we developed kind of our tiered system and the pricing, that it is reflective of kind of what's standard within communities like ours. We use communities like Suckbury, Wanakee, DeForest, like I said, Janesville, Fort Atkinson as our comps, as our primary comps. So a lot of what's in here is reflective of the systems that they have in place. As far as the tiers go.
One of the things that we work really hard to do is to find a balance, and I would strongly agree with some of the folks that spoke in public comment about the importance of use of facilities, and they even recognize that in times of very tight budgets, the district has a responsibility to make sure that we're not making reductions to our instructional programs or our school opportunities for folks to be able to provide opportunities for non-school activities. So it's really finding that balance and making sure that we have a system that helps to meet our needs as a district, but allows these groups to continue to hold their events, because we do want to have events in our schools as much as possible.
I think I know Richie mentioned that this discussion started several months ago, and I recall it coming up from time to time, but one of the unfortunate things about this is just given where we are today, this topic is not the end all of difficult decisions. It's a step in a series of difficult decisions, unfortunately. And trying to find the right balance here is important because this is a single step in other difficult decisions that are going to be presented to us in the coming weeks and months. And so, as we navigate through all of these things, try to strike a balance between where is cost incurred and what are the alternative impacts, and then trying to balance those things is going to be a challenge. A lot of work obviously went into putting the memo together and formulating the tiers, doing research, and it certainly is appreciated as we take a difficult topic and try to strike a balance.
If you don't mind, I can jump in.
Go ahead.
Jeff, I do have some more questions for you, so I'm sorry. I mean, all in the back. First of all, I just will be very clear. I've had a front row seat for a lot of this for a lot of years. The custodial crew is an amazing crew. They do a lot of great work, and the problem is real. A lot of times we do put more. There is a lot of cleanup that happens that does not go on the books financially. So I will testify, I've seen it on Monday mornings, school's a disaster. I've seen it on Monday mornings when the school looks great. But I also want to, say that this has been going on for decades. And our three key words are, two of them are opportunity and community. So I want to be very careful as we proceed that we preserve some of the things that we've had in the past. So I'm in favor. I just want to make sure that we proceed with caution as we move forward. So can you talk a little bit about the collaboration and communication that happened with the youth groups? Like, when did that start? For me, this was the first time I heard about it, which is not a shock. I knew the board, so it was last Wednesday, the first time I got to talk about it. So can you talk about that a little bit?
I mean, communication with some of our leaders of our youth groups happened a few weeks ago. After the determination on the fee structure kind of was solidified. And we kind of divided and conquered and reached out to as many leaders as we could. And we didn't hit everybody, to be perfectly honest with you. But I talked to many of our youth presidents. Mr. Billhorn reached out to a lot of performing arts people. We did our best in the time frame to communicate kind of what was happening. But it was really important for me that we didn't have this meeting and then people were blindsided by it. We did our best in communicating it. Like I said, just even with whatever vote that you do, that collaboration and those conversations will continue after tonight, right? And it's not like we're done here. We're going to meet with the leadership of our youth groups and work through this with them to, like I said, communicate the best we can.
And I think the board's aware of this. I'm going to say for the public, a lot of our youth programs donate a lot to our schools, a ton. I mean, that's been the history, and that's why we've kicked this problem down the road, and I'm guilty of it. I sat in Lance's chair, and I didn't address the issue. There's a lot of revenue coming in from the school, from the youth groups. What oversight do we have if we approve this? Do you or Jeremy or Stephen have the ability to waive a fee or adjust a fee if we say, hey, look, someone's just done this amazing thing for us? $75,000 for the uniforms.
So, gentlemen, correct me if I'm wrong here, but there is language in the AG itself for service agreements that can be arranged between entities. So, yeah, and then ultimately have to be approved by Mr. Nana. So there is that language outside of the fees that you see within that document to allow for agreements to be struck, kind of like what you're saying.
And is there also some kind of enforcement?
Define enforcement.
Well, again, so what if someone obviously says, yeah, I'll get you the $2,500, or are you taking payment in advance of the event? What's the?
Well, we've been lucky enough that, our youth organizations are so good that we've never had that issue of kind of reneging on a.
We haven't been charged.
No, I mean, like, okay. So I was interpreting what you said as a promised donation.
Oh.
You're talking about the charging.
Right, do you have something in place?
Yes, that will be done through our school facility schedule where they will be invoiced through the system that we have directly. So there is a measure of accountability, and again, Lance Knudsen, who runs the facilities, will be the point person to do that. Right? And if you don't have a paid invoice, I guess you don't get the facility again, right? So.
Illogical.
Yeah.
I think, as you look at the equitably sharing this as well, some of the groups are already paying. So like youth football, for example, already has some skin in the game, if you will, because they are investing $2,500 in painting the Lions youth soccer as well. And so outside of those two, a lot of the other organizations haven't necessarily had a similar expectation of helping offset the costs.
Correct.
So with this impact, so I know we've talked a lot about the basketball and the wrestling, and understand that. So this would be, and I know we had someone from the band speak, so like the big band tournament showcase that they have.
Jerry didn't speak. Mr. Billhorn is kind of taking a point on that.
Okay, because I know we spoke sports, we haven't spoken on the arts part.
Can I piggyback off that? Jimmy, can you throw show choir in there too?
That was my next one, yeah.
So there's really, for the performing arts, there's two events that we're talking about. It's the band invite in the fall, marching band invite. They do have 12, 13, 14 more bands that come for that. And then Rock the Rock, the show choir invitational one, would be an outdoor event. They charge admission to get into that event. They charge to get into the stadium, and then obviously Rock the Rock, which is admission. So those are the two that we were had in mind with for the performing arts.
So for the band invitational, so that would fall in there with the $500 per
Correct.
day for the 2 days or however many days.
It's a single day.
It's a single day. So that for all of that, and then show choir would be the indoor use for the rock.
The setup starts beforehand. The event is a single day, so it's a
Single day. And they charge at the door as well as they charge the other towns too.
Correct. The other groups that come, there is an entrance fee for them.
And again, and the cost for the outdoor, I know we spoke about the indoor, but outdoor, we also have the lavatories at the field.
Right. So there's all the associated costs with Steve will give you the specifics, but it's the preparation of the events, it's the same usage of consumables, etc.
Thank you.
So just maybe Steve a little bit too, just as I've personally done it, and I know Dave's done it too. Rock the Rock is an amazing event, raises a lot of money for everybody. But there is more than just setting up chairs. This team does, putting down the floor protection. They do an amazing job. They're up in there till 2 a.m. cleaning up, trying to get ready for school, but there's still work. And Steve, I don't know if you can highlight some of that, but and I love my show choir. I don't want to charge them a penny more, we have to, but.
No, and you hit the nail on the head with all the effort that show choir does.
Stephen, can we have you come up so that folks who are listening from home can hear? Thanks.
Yeah, so you hit the nail on the head for all the things that show choir does to, prep for the event and bring the school back to as close to school ready as you can. But I mean, like you mentioned, you've seen it firsthand. We still have the effort to bring it back. That's an example of a event where we have to order a 20-yard dumpster. We have to have extra services brought in to help support the event. I mean, that's like $1,000 to support that event just to cover the costs, maybe even so.
And I think it's worth noting in that particular case, and again, I'm picking on show choir, there's other great bands the same way too. That outside entity, and Jeremy, I don't know how you guys came up with this, but that outside entity exists to make sure that event happens or that show choir happens in the school curriculum. So
Yeah, both of those, obviously, they exist to support the specific event at the high school.
So do we see an annual large donation from them, or do they just like, hey, we'll pay for dresses or?
Right, and it's evolved over the years, and we work with them, so they do provide, it depends on the year too, but they provide, in both cases, roughly, 2/3 to 75% of the total cost for both the marching band and the show choir. So they do provide, we would not have, as we know, we would not have those events. That is correct. As far as with regards to facility use, we started putting this policy together. It was looking at overall charges in general, and then taking a look at how do the different events fall into this. As we take a look at what is a consistent way to have facility use fee structure, it was not necessarily with events in mind. Those are generous groups and the other groups as well. But it was what's a consistent way to provide, to try to cover some of the costs for having any event, and then it's applying these groups to it. So as you put down the criteria, then you put down. In these cases, the marching band event or the show choir event, they tended to fall into, yes, those would be indoor and outdoor large events.
And where I would struggle, I don't envy your position when you make this decision. Where I would struggle is that band, I wasn't aware of band being similar to shapewear, is if we've got an entity that's going to give us way more than $1,000 for the uniforms or whatever, and then we're going to turn around and charge them $1,000. I struggle with that, and it's a double angel. And I don't have a yes or no right answer. I'm just throwing that out there and saying, I don't know how you come up with that decision. I'm not jealous of you.
Like I said, the amounts, we're trying to recover what the cost would be for a general indoor outdoor events, and then we apply those and trying to have it consistent.
Thank you. I'm done battling. Thank you.
I just have one more. Stephen, is there contracts already in existence to rent the cafeteria or the kitchen or the library?
Jeff will take that one.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, there are.
Okay, so you're just gonna incorporate these fee schedules then, if this is approved, you'll just incorporate that into the contract?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think we decided, in the meeting, we're looking at a July 1st kind of start date for the new administrative guidelines and the fee structure. So that would retroactively, if we have things pushed out 4 or 5 months from now, those events would be subject to the new administrative guidelines.
That's my next question, thank you.
You're welcome.
I guess I'll go next. I've waited here with letting everyone opine on this, and we don't even have a motion on the floor, so I just wanted to talk in general. First of all, I wanted to thank the folks that led this, and like we've talked a number of times, this is a somewhat long process. It started a long time ago. Rich and Carrie in the administrative roles, and then Jeff and Jeremy and Stephen and Lance, and a number of folks have weighed into this to get it to the document that got before us tonight. So thank you for that. There's meaningful research and data and so forth. I was at the committee meeting and heard, a lot of back and forth on this. I think a lot of us have been reached out to by some community members, and thank you for that. We always want folks to let us know what your thoughts are, and we're trying to incorporate all of that. Rich had mentioned that it's a balancing act, and I really look at it that way. Understandably, there are costs associated with operating our buildings. We want people to use those buildings in the fashions that we've identified, of course. User fees they're somewhat in place. We're formalizing it and maybe making it more uniform, which is a great thing to have moving forward. It obviously affects some people that haven't had those in place until now. So that's the struggle for me personally, and I've been involved in a number of those groups. And I said at the committee meeting, and the document that's before us here, to me, and this is completely my own opinion, the hourly fees don't have the sticker shock that the daily fees do for some of those bigger events. And I think that was referenced by some of the public comment folks or whatever. My comments at the committee level and what I would offer as a suggestion, and we've got a recommended motion, but we can certainly put forth any motion that anyone wants to. I would like to see us walk into this in a couple of steps. If in fact we want to have a uniform system, this is a great starting point. The caveat being, and I don't know about cherry picking different pieces of it, I've heard that some of what we've got outlined is very customary for folks that are doing that already. Maybe the last item in that box format, I guess it's on the screen also, these indoor athletic tournaments, I would like to see the motion have that at half of that rate for a year and step to the full rate in the second year. That's a very personal slant on this. I think it's a way that we can be sympathetic, be very conciliatory toward our youth groups. We want them to keep doing this. These fees don't even fully recover the costs that we associate with running all of these things. But if we take a step, even if it's a baby step toward that, I think it gets easier as we move down the line. So that's where I landed on this.
Joe, if I could piggyback on it, I would support that. I'm in favor of that for a couple of reasons. One of our 3 tiers is community, and we have given them about 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe a month notice on this. And it's been like this for decades. It's been decades of you take care of me and I'll take care of you. I think this is a time to go slow to go fast. I would support Stephen, who's been doing this for longer than he should have. I think we owe it to the community to take a little bit of time and work this a little bit slower, get it where we want to be, entertain ideas from them about maybe how to help offset some of those costs, work collaboratively, because that's what we do here, Milton, is we work together. So I'm supportive of that if board so sees it.
To your point,
So we could go so far as to say that if your event is already on the calendar, that you are not charged, obviously, until the following year.
we talked about that at the committee level. That gets to be a little challenging when some folks are booked 7 months out and some things are booked 30 days out. I think we have to pick a line in the sand of sorts. But
See, I would lean against that because I don't feel that that's treating the others. So Milton Youth Football and Milton Youth Soccer have paid these fees year upon year upon year without a facility fee in place. And just because some of the other athletics haven't paid them, the expectation is they should be covering their costs. So, go ahead.
Can I jump in just for one clarification on
If I didn't read that correctly, please correct me.
soccer? So the soccer and football stuff is not for use of the facility. I guess I should describe this. It's for specifically the lighting of their fields. So before the school district line the fields, for example, youth soccer, you know, youth soccer would employ a student or a dad to line their fields for them. But since we have all the equipment and all that good stuff, you know, they are basically paying our grounds team.
They're paying you to provide a service.
Exactly.
Similar to.
But it's just, I just wanted to clarify, it wasn't the use of the facility.
Agreed, but you're not paying to use the basketball court, you're paying for the expenses we listed out earlier for a wrestling tournament set. So that's where, again, I understand what you're saying about baby steps, but I just want to make sure that we're being equal across all of our events. If our show choir Rock the Rock makes $30,000-$40,000, you know, is that fair when, you know, I don't know if soccer makes any money. I don't know, you know, like I don't seem to having, I don't know if they have tournaments or not, but I'm trying to understand the equality there across.
Well, and that's why I'm supporting the go slow to go fast, because every group, everything is a different arrangement. Right? There's no two the same. So setting a flat line is really difficult. Show choir might make $30,000 to $40,000, but they can't run the show choir. The curriculum.
Sorry, that's fine.
To the level that they run it now without that money. And same with band.
And same with band. So maybe those are.
So those are not comparable to basketball and wrestling.
In the current world we live in, I mean, football pays, soccer pays, but nobody else pays. So by stepping into this, it's just making it more fair, right?
And I want to be clear, if we talk about stepping in, I'm not saying that it doesn't cost us money. I'm 100% behind it. It costs us money to run these events. We wind up usually a lot of times coming out behind these, which is not fair to taxpayers a lot of times.
No, and I'm worried about having an educational impact to our children. I mean, again, we're in a tight budget now. Whereas if we're incurring costs, and I mean, I'm completely for athletics, and I completely agree that we have to have them and support where we can. But again, all the other, so you said how many hours we're using for just the tier 1, the no charge point practices. Somebody made a comment about.
It's a different level for different.
Say basketball, for example. You said there was a certain like 60
The biggest user
days.
is the youth basketball, and in the information that Lance Knudsen provided to me, it was about just under 60 hours a week.
60 hours a week, and that's for free, and that would stay for free. So the district is still taking the cost of that for the electricity and the HVAC and the cleanup and so on and so forth. So there's no change there, which is fair. But if they're charging a fee for an activity, that's where I would lean to. Like I said, I'm concerned about the budget.
I think an example of that, Tracy, in an email that was shared, someone highlighted that there's anywhere from 1,000 to 1,200 folks coming in and attending a weekend basketball tournament. So I'm not certain what they charge for admission fees, but that's a significant amount of income for that group.
Which I know, and again, we had the comment, they do great things with it and they make contributions to the district. So again, I kind of lean,
I like the idea of the baby steps. I just don't think it's gonna make it any easier next year or the year after, whenever we change it. There's been a lot of time put into this, months, literally. Stephen didn't just pick these numbers, you know, he's explained to us how he's, come up with these numbers, and, I'm gonna make a motion to approve the facility use fee structure for all school district of Milton facilities as presented starting July 1st, 2023.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion is from Rick, seconded by Dave, as you just heard, to approve our facility use fee structure for all school district of Milton facilities as presented starting July 1st, 2023. Any additional comments on the motion?
Just one with the utmost respect. This was started a long time ago, but we heard tonight that the community didn't find about, the groups didn't find about it until 2-3 weeks ago. This is a collaborative team. One of the things that I just learned in onboarding as a board is communication. I think we owe it to our groups of millions of dollars that give us the whole decades, to give them a little time to adjust to this. I don't think it's too much to ask to take a year and work into this.
Are you suggesting to
Back to the baby steps.
baby step into it?
Yeah, I'm fully supportive of getting there, but I think we owe it to our youth groups to allow this, or bring it back to the board in 2 months. Give them some time to digest this and work through it.
At least maybe the opportunity, if they have a current contract that says there are no fees, perhaps at least give them the opportunity to say, I'm sorry, but we're out. I don't know, it's just a suggestion. Because at some point, it sounds like there's several contracts that are already signed, and those contracts don't have fees associated
I feel
with
like the
them.
word contract would be strong, right? I mean, this is not an attorney drew this up documents. This is a,
Like there is a facilities contract usage, right? If you're gonna have a basketball tournament, correct me if I'm wrong, if you're gonna have a basketball tournament, do they sign? You said something, you referenced like a 10-page document, that there was some kind of.
Get your track shoes on, there you go.
You can call it a contract, you can call it an agreement, but it's all done digitally on our school, right? So there is, you request a facility at a date, time, whatever that may be, now maybe at a price point that we might establish. And then you sign off on the use of that facility, yes.
would it be difficult for you to actualize costs?
Explain that a little bit. What do you mean?
So it's gonna, we pay this much for a dumpster. Here, you have to cover the actualized cost of what we incurred. So that if you don't incur those fees, you don't pay them.
So
I'm out of curiosity. I don't know how difficult it would
You're
be.
talking to the wrong guy about.
Oh.
Again.
That's a Stephen question.
That gets far too into the weeds
Okay.
for.
Not to that level, but for the higher, I was saying for the higher ballparking, to make it visible that it's not like, you know, it's not, we're not trying to generate revenue, we're just trying to cover over the cost of what we're incurring, so we don't take away from the educational part of our.
One of the things that we talked about when we considered something like that was the difficulty in identifying how much the cost on a Saturday for a basketball tournament is compared to a 2 month later Sunday for a wrestling tournament. And rather than putting an hourly cost and having somebody track what time, if one group goes for 8 hours and another group goes for 10 hours, there was simplicity's sake and easier for folks to know what to plan for, was building in that specific event cost. And it's and typically on a per day basis would be less than the hourly rate for a tier 3 if they were there for a considerable amount for a full day, for sure.
Thank you.
One of the things that was brought up was the idea of delaying this decision for a couple of months, and I would caution the board on not doing anything on this tonight. I think it's important that we have some clarity moving forward. Another idea that was thrown out was the idea of a step, a lesser amount for the first year, and then a full amount for the second year for that indoor tournament group. I think that would be a lot more manageable for our administrative team and for the folks who are setting all of this up. The other thing that I would caution is that if we bring this back 2 months from now at another board meeting, it's very possible that we'll have people at that meeting who feel the other way about this, who feel as taxpayers that the district should be charging non-school groups for the use of our facilities and offsetting some of the costs that we have and helping to protect our instructional programs and the budget for our instructional programs by offsetting some of that cost.
So I don't often do this, but trust me, procedurally I can do motions and amendments, et cetera, from the chair. For my own conscience, I'm going to offer an amendment to the motion. And in the manner that Rick made the motion, I would offer an amendment to the indoor athletic tournaments and events box to make that $500 per day for year one, and then to increase to $1,000 a day for year two. With this being effective July 1st like we've intended.
Joe, just a clarification, some of these groups, for example, I think Crossfire would practice, I can only speculate, 40, 50 hours a week maybe. Are they paying $60 per hour? I mean,
I guess it becomes very challenging to amend the motion and sort of highlight all the exceptions. I don't know. It seemed to me that the sticker shock, if you will, was around that bigger number. I recognize that a number of hours at $60 adds up to a cumulative number that's a burden too. But I wanted to keep it simple and address a lot of the input that I've gotten. So
Can I answer, John, in my opinion? I think that's the.
So the amendment hasn't been seconded, so we can't talk about the amendment.
Okay.
You can talk about the original motion all you want.
I'll wait.
I'm gonna go back to the original motion, if that can be
Well,
done.
the amendment's on the floor. If it doesn't get a second, it dies.
I will second it.
Okay, so the amendment has been seconded to adjust the fees for the indoor athletic tournaments to $500 for year one and $1,000 for year two and beyond. Is there any discussion on the amendment?
I'm just gonna answer, Jen. My opinion, this is why we do it this way. Because there's going to be a lot of like, oh, we didn't think of this, we didn't think of that. Oh, how does this apply? How does that apply? It buys us a year to work through those. It's good faith between. That's given us these extras. That's my opinion.
so you're saying only cut the weekend events?
No, I'm saying that's what we make, I'm addressing the motion saying.
The amendment is to adjust the fees for
I'm
the
in
indoor
favor of
athletic
that
tournaments.
because I think those questions that you just, I don't know the answer to all of them. And I think administration's gonna have a lot to figure out over the next year.
There was a conversation that we had about Crossfire and how the differences between Crossfire and the Milton Youth Sports groups, and where Crossfire would fall into tier 2 is around the fact that it's not exclusive for Milton students. It's open to Milton students, but it's also includes students from other communities, and also that it's exclusive in a way that it isn't open to anyone. There's tryouts and a small number of students at the different grade levels qualifies for that. So in our planning, the Crossfire Club would fall into tier 2.
So I'm gonna address, so in your mind, so with Milton Storm then, we had a public comment for Milton Storm, which is an exclusive baseball team.
Yeah, and they offer tryouts.
And they select their team, and those that don't make it, so in theory, the outdoor fee now for them would be this $500 per tournament, which we haven't said we were gonna cut in half.
Yes.
Any other discussion on the amendment? All in favor of incorporating the amendment into the main motion?
Can we read what it is we're voting on?
So you're voting on the amendment that I offered.
Specific language in what we're voting on.
so the,
Carly can read back what
and I'm not sure, I'm not sure she got exactly what I said, but
Or can't read back.
no. So my amendment offered is to approve the fee structure, is to support Rick's motion with the change, the amendment, to be specific to the indoor athletic tournaments and events, to be 500 per day instead of 1,000, and to ascend or increase to 1,000 after year one. So they have 1 year to step into this and adopt this fee as it's presented in year two. That's the amendment.
Roll call.
You sure can. So I will jump to my, is there any other discussion on the amendment? And I will jump to my right and roll call it. Dave?
I'm confused how we skipped the first motion, but in light of that.
Well, we're amending the main motion. We haven't skipped it. So if this amendment fails, the main motion is still on the table.
Potato, potato, I guess I'll vote yes.
John?
Yes.
Tracy?
No.
Rick?
No.
Keeping track on my fingers here. I offered the amendment, so I'm a yes. Jennifer?
Yes.
That's 4, and Rick, Ed?
Yes.
That's 5. The amendment passes 5-2. So now the amended motion is on the table and can have further discussion if you choose, or we can proceed to a vote. Does anybody have any additional comments on the motion as it's amended?
Wait, I thought we just voted on yes or no on the amendment.
No.
That was on changing the.
Parliamentary procedure is we have a motion on the floor, it's properly seconded. I offered an amendment to the main motion, so we're changing it.
Can I change my vote to no then?
No,
You're gonna get that chance right now.
you can't change your vote, you can't change your vote after we voted. You're voting on the, I thought I was clear, you're voting on
We had a
amending.
motion in a second, we should have just voted on it, and if it failed, then offer.
No, that is not procedurally correct.
Joe, do you want to explain again what was
What are we
just
voting
voted on?
Yes.
And what you're proposing?
So we just voted to amend the main motion such that now Rick's motion says he moved to approve the facility and use fee structure for all school district of Milton facilities as presented. And I suppose inserted here would be the amendment to, with the caveat or change being to the indoor athletic tournaments and events for 500 per day for year one, and then ascended to 1,000 per day for year two and beyond, starting July 1st, 2023. So we approved a change to the main motion, which now is able to be voted on.
So the initial vote wasn't.
Wasn't yes or
on
no
whether
for the main
to approve
motion?
that motion or not. The original vote was to amend the original
Correct.
motion. So now the original motion has been amended, and now you're asking the board to vote on the amended.
And we are able to discuss it further, or it can be amended again. I want to get into the weeds here, but that's parliamentary procedure.
Joe, can you clarify, was it indoor and outdoor events?
Nope, the way I worded it was that last box on our document, which contains all of the pertinent details, was indoor athletic tournaments and events, $1,000 per day, and then of course the services were all appropriately attached there. So I did not include the outdoor events with my amendment.
So are we saying that on July 1, 2024, it's gonna go up to 1,000?
No. Oh,
Yes.
yes.
So
Yes.
If,
Okay.
If we approve it.
If
is
it's-
approved, it would on starting July 1st of 2023,
It would be
for that
for that group.
section would be 500, and then on July 1st of 2024, it would become 1,000.
1,000. That was the intent of the amendment.
For events held on July 1st or after.
Correct.
Yeah.
And you purposely left outdoor, I thought you just missed it.
Nope, I did not misspeak. I was trying to keep it simple and not all inclusive. I know there's gonna come up to a, hey, what about me type of a response, and I didn't intend to be, all inclusive. I just wanted to address that little box, for lack of a better word.
I feel like we were gonna step it, we should have stepped both of those, because obviously now the band would be impacted, similarly, which is why I voted no, because I felt that it was, I feel the district needs to charge to cover its expenses, so we don't have to hit instructional when it comes to budget planning, and I will leave it at that.
Anybody else?
Just share on the administrative side, we definitely have a need for recouping some of our costs for these facilities, but I would support the amended motion that's on the table. I think it does help find a balance between those indoor groups that $1,000 a day, particularly when many of their tournaments are 2-day tournaments, is a significant amount of money, but it also helps recoup some of the costs and it gives them a year to prepare for the higher increase that will be coming.
We will call it.
Yes, sir. Anybody else? Otherwise, I'm going to vote, or call the vote, I'm sorry. And I will revert to the other side this time. So we're voting on the amended version of the motion. So we're all clear. Now we'll start with Ed.
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Joe is a yes. Rick?
No.
Tracy?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
And Dave?
If Rick had amended his own motion, I would have been comfortable with that. I just don't like how this unfolded. I vote no.
Okay. That's a 5-2. That motion passes. Thank you all for your insight and valuable guidance. We will move to.
Just one item left under.
Yep, one on the finance and transportation, which is discussing and possible action on the 23-24 school fees and meal prices. Michael, are you shepherding that one?
Part of it.
Okay. The meal, I bet.
John, do you want to start with kind of an overview of
Sure.
the committee discussion?
Sure. So in regards to school fees, per board policy 6152, the board may charge students for certain activities and consumables to facilitate the utilization of adequate, appropriate learning materials used in the course of instruction. The board may also charge for social and extracurricular activities. As presented in board docs, and as you will see in tonight's presentation, there will be a slight increase in some of the school fees. Lunch prices are reviewed annually and must comply with USDA regulations. Although prices are going up slightly, there will still be financial assistance to those families that do qualify.
There's a memo in board docs from Mike around proposed meal price increases, and there also is a document that lists all of the school fees and proposed school fees and meal prices. So, Mike, do you want to share some info on the meal prices portion of that?
Yeah, so the 10-cent increase is just kind of something we've done historically that this helps to offset some of our food costs and our consumable goods that we use. We're still seeing inflation all across the board when it comes to food prices. Starting from the farm, working its way all the way down until it hits us at the high school when we receive those food products. So things haven't changed there. There actually was an article, if you go up to K-12 dive, there's an article that recently came out that was talking about inflation costs that are hitting food service departments across the country. So yeah, I'm just asking for the 10 cents to help us stay sustainable, not only next year, but into the future.
One thing to highlight on the meal prices, we annually look at those meal prices and want to make sure, I think the board knows this, but our school nutrition program is not part of Fund 10, so it has a separate fund, and the goal is to charge for meals in a way that helps offset the cost of the food that's provided.
I would move to approve the 2023-24 school fees and meal prices as presented.
Second.
Can I ask a question before we vote?
Oh, of course.
Thank you.
Pause 1 second. So we have a motion on the floor from, I'm sorry, Rick, and then Dave. Anyway, Dave's motion seconded by Rick to approve our school fees and meal prices as presented. Now we can discuss it.
Sorry, thank you. I have a question on the fees for the sports. So considering the last topic we just had here, we're looking to increase family costs. These don't say optional, so these must be required for the sports for 7 and 8 and 9 and 12.
Carrie and or Jeff, you want to speak to that?
Generally speaking, when it comes to fees for sports, they are required, or the board is allowed to assess a fee for, as John had said, those extracurricular activities. And so then, the fee is charged, but we do have fee waivers available for those, in financial need.
Understood.
So it's required unless you receive the waiver.
No, and I understand that, so I guess my point is, we just approved deductions for, in costs that were incurring, but now we're turning around and charging our families more. So, exactly.
Tracy, these are the actual school teams versus a club team outside of that. So this would be, I'm playing a varsity sport at university, sport of being on the 8th grade track team, whereas the other ones were club sports, once removed. Correct me if I'm not characterizing that right,
So
but that's the variation.
So not every family has to pay the fee?
No, it's
Oh,
only
Not at all.
right sport.
Only if
Yeah.
you're in athletics.
It's a participant fee. We
Is that-
should
is
add
that
to
per-
the
per
description.
sport?
Okay, because it says sports, and then, because the other ones say optional, like if I don't wanna buy a yearbook, I don't have to buy a yearbook.
Oh,
But here they don't say optional, so I do
Oh,
Right,
apologize.
no,
Yeah.
we need to add
Question, so we
participant.
have clarity on that. It is like, they are user fees for people that choose to go out for athletic teams, and like the facility fees, they don't recoup the entire cost of that, but they help offset the cost for those different activities. And it's not, I would say, I shouldn't say every district, but I would say nearly every district in the state has some type of fee for participation in athletics. And we try to look again there at what are the surrounding districts do, what's comparable, what are the costs of that activity. So you can see the different charges that are there are some increases to both book subscriptions, sports fees at the middle school and at the high school. Course consumables fee and we try to keep those at a reasonable increase when we look at them from year to year. I think sometimes if we don't look at increasing at least examine it on an annual basis, you get to a point where when you do raise it, you have to raise it at an extremely large amount. So that's kind of where those were built.
So if I'm a participant in, or, you have a child who's in baseball, football, and track, do they now pay 75 per sport?
Correct.
That's the proposal, yes.
That's the proposal. And what would this be for, say, band or show choir? Is that curriculum based, or that is curriculum based, so there's no fee for that?
Correct.
Anybody else?
Could we, I think in the interest of transparency, I don't know if somebody wants to speak to the change in the hockey fee. We should be very public about that.
Jeff, do you want to speak to the change in the hockey fee?
Speaker.
Sure. You should sit closer to the front, Mr. Speaker.
I haven't been to a board meeting in a while. So like anything that we do, we research, we get comparables, we look at data before we make decisions on whatever, right? So we're talking about fee changes in general. The Badger Conference a year ago, the average athletic fee per sport was $70. Lowest being 40, the highest being 350. Okay, so by increasing that, so we basically decided based on those comps to increase it 50%, like all our sports fees, 50% to 75 to come in slightly above that Badger Conference average. So that's the why the number is what it is. Hockey was getting charged, boys hockey was getting charged 500, so 50% would make 750. Prior to, actually through the existence of our girls hockey co-op, the girls hockey players were paying the basic participation fee. So $50 to play hockey. Well, the district picked up the cost associated with their participation in Beloit Memorial's co-op on the district paid for that. So they had no additional fees.
Jeff, can I pause you just for a second, because I'm not sure that all of the board members in the audience know the setup for our girls hockey compared to boys hockey. And I think that's an important part of the conversation.
Okay, so for our boys hockey co-op, we are the owner of the co-op or the host school, so we set financial terms. So when we, in our hockey co-op, we charge families now $500, and then we charge the school of each participating athlete, $1,000 per athlete. So we're getting $1,500 per athlete for non-Milton kids and $500 for Milton kids coming in to help support that program. Beloit Memorial High School hosts the co-op for the Rock County Fury. They have a system where they invoice schools after the fact. So they take all the expenses associated with girls hockey, divided by the number of participants. You know, let's say, I think they had 13 girls that played girls hockey. We had 3 of them. So think about you know, taking that cost, dividing it 13 ways, and then we pay for 3 shares of that on the back end. That's how the setup is. What's difficult about that is it's extremely unpredictable what our payment is going to be on the back end. That's why we do it our way, to offset a lot of costs, but give the schools within our co-op like a very consistent and easy budget line in which they can operate. So that's kind of the history of it. So all that being said, there wasn't an equity where our boys hockey players at Milton High School were paying $500 to participate in that sport, and the girls were paying $50. Right? And so to offset the costs on the back end, those back end costs for Beloit Memorial, the $750 fee for hockey was then extended to both boys and girls.
And Jeff, I think you said in the committee the actual cost for student playing hockey is approximately $2,300, $2,500. This is a third.
Let's say approximately $2,000, a little over, a little under, but it's an expensive sport. Hence, the additional fees that are associated with it.
Do we feel we'll lose girls hockey players due to this fee? Or the hockey families know that the fees were?
I don't want to speculate on what our hockey families think or feel. I do know that hockey is a very expensive sport from the time they're knee high, and additional fees for that sport are very standard and very accepted.
But to recap what you just said, we were charging them $50.
Yeah.
And it was costing the district about $2,000.
Correct.
Okay,
That's
anybody
for
else?
this, I'm sorry, that's for this year.
Coming up.
Yep.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yep.
All right, we have a motion and second on the floor. Is there any other discussion? Motion is to approve the 23-24 school fees and meal prices as presented. All in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Thank you. Okay, new business. A is 23-24 new open enrollment applications, and I believe that's Rich.
1 minute to open those up. These are new applications for the coming year. It's an update on the number of applications, and I'll walk you through the document that's there. And this is an action item. So the way it's laid out in the document, on the left-hand column are the 22-23, so our current year. And on the right is for the applications for the coming year. And the top box is open enrollment in. So this current year, we had 83 people apply to come in, and in the third Friday count, there were 58 of those that showed up, and it's not unusual that there be more applicants. People will sometimes apply in multiple districts, actually, and then make a decision about if they're going to stay in their current district or enroll in the new district. And for this coming year, we have 88 applications, so and that's up from last year. And of those 88, 19 are students that moved outside the district but applied to remain here. So they've been attending here, they moved outside the district, they want to continue to go to school here. Since they moved out, they'll be considered open enroll in students. They're no longer residents. And the other 69 would be no new open enrollment in student applications. And then the bottom chart is for open enrolled out. Again, this current year, 71 applied and 53 were in the third Friday attendance for open enrolling out of our district. Those are students that are residents in our district but attend school in a different district. And for this year, there have been 69 that have applied to open enroll out. 14 of those are students that have moved into our district and want to continue to attend the district that they're currently attending. And 55 of those 69 are new open enrollment out applications. And those include those applying for homeschool, private school, or those changing to be open enroll out of the district. And of those 55, 10 of those have applied to open enroll out to another district for the 23-24 year. So the board annually approves those, and then the board has through policy has given me authority during the school year, and even in the summer, we'll have families open enroll in and out, and we'll get those applications, and I approve those, and then just bring the board updates. But the board approves the initial applicants for the coming year.
And Rich, that 88 for 23-24 would include some of the 83 from last year. It's not cumulative. It's correct. Okay, thank you.
I think it bears noting, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a bit of a tipping point where that open enroll ins have exceeded the open enroll outs. Historically, that's not been our experience, right?
It's the case for the applications right now, and we'll see where it lands in the third Friday count. But over the last 4 or 5 years, we've gone from a pretty significant deficit in open enrollment students. So if we had the open enroll out and the open enroll in, there was a pretty big gap. And every year that gap has narrowed. This current year is a shade under in the number of open enroll in versus out. And we're anticipating that to be a shade over for the coming year. And we'll see where it lands in the third Friday count. And if that trend continues and we continue to have space for students, and every year the board can decide if we have the space to allow students in, that does have an impact on our district-wide budget, because we lose revenue for students that open enroll out, and we gain revenue for students that open enroll in.
Make a motion to approve the recommendations for the 2023-24 new open enrollment applications as presented.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Rick's motion, seconded by Dave, to approve the open enroll applications as presented. Questions? All in favor of approval signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And last on new business, as Carrie is getting to the podium, is discussion and possible action, I think it was alluded to earlier tonight, on our ESSER 3 spending plan. Ms. Carey.
So at the committee meeting, when we were talking about budget planning, discussion was around when we work on next year's budget, using the federal funds that are available toward balancing that budget. You may recall that we've had several rounds of federal funding in the past, and we have used them also to balance the budget as we went along in the current year. The ESSER 3 allocation is about $2 million, as you can see in the memo. They have what's called a grant performance period, and that's basically the window where the funds may be used. And that window began in March of 2020 and then went to September of 2024. So in 21-22, we allocated about half of those funds for 2 projects. One was around improving indoor air quality at the high school, and then the other one was purchasing the K-8 English language arts curriculum. And then we decided to put any further purchases on hold until we knew what our budget was going to look like. And so we are at the point now where we've identified in our 23-24 budget that we will be using these funds toward balancing our budget. And so to do so, one of the things I did was I went and looked at what is the grant eligible for. And our Apple leases are eligible for the grant. And so that is why they're selected and why I'm asking you to approve that purchase. So by using the money for the Apple leases, that is then funding that we will have available to balance the budget. Rich, did you want to add anything? Or is there something I've left out that I should be speaking to?
Yeah, I think just a couple things quick that I'll add, and this is an action item for the board. Many districts across the state have been put in a position to utilize the ESSER funds to help balance the budget. When we talk about balancing the budget, it really is to maintain some of the positions that we would need to reduce if we didn't utilize the ESSER funds in that way. We have a number of current vacancies right now because we paused on hiring as we've had people resign or retire. And we've paused that as we worked through what are the reductions that we'll need to make and bring to the board in that preliminary budget at the second board meeting in June in order to have a balanced budget. And by utilizing the ESSER funds in this way, it really, in the second to the last sentence in the memo, it says availability of the one-time funds will allow us to begin filling some of our vacant positions for the coming year. So we're not reducing all positions that have been vacated by retirements and resignations. We won't need to get a balanced budget, but utilizing these funds in this way will really a positive vote on the motion would be really a commitment from the board to utilize those one-time funds to help support a balanced budget for the upcoming year and allow some of those vacancies to be filled.
Of course. Carrie, are we, just for clarity, are we making the upcoming year's lease payment? Or are you making two?
There isn't enough to make two payments. If we claim indirect costs, it's about 1.5 payment. So right now, what we have the ability to do is to claim the payment that we made in July for this year, and then either apply the balance to our July 1 payment, or I've asked actually if I can go back to the prior year, given the grant period, so that we can claim and be done. And I'm waiting for the answer to that question. So whichever I can do in a timely manner.
And for the board and the public, can you give a rough number of what that payment is? I know it's somewhere around $500,000.
Yeah, it's closer to 600,000.
One of the things, I don't know, I apologize if you said this already, Carrie, but with our current Apple lease agreement, we have 2 years remaining on that, and that's for our devices, for our staff, and for students. And one of the things as we're working through ways to be more efficient is having a conversation of when that lease ends, would we want to renew those devices or look at different devices? So that's a question that's coming up. We have 2 more years of leases with the devices that we have, and the devices that we have are working really well for students and staff. They provide a lot of opportunities, but we also want to look at other options that are available for when that lease expires. So this decision by the board isn't tying us to doing anything with extension of that lease or changing the terms of that lease. It is just utilizing those ESSER funds to pay for it, to kind of free up some funds to be able to use in next year's budget.
And to be clear, we have a grant, a lease payment due on July of 23, July 1st of 23, and July 1st of 24.
What we're talking about here is paying what we've already paid and reimbursing ourselves.
Correct. It's a source of funds that's eligible for the grant.
That's when the payments are due. When is the lease expired?
The final payment is on July 1 of 2024.
And that would be for the 24-25 year.
Correct.
Is there anything that this grant would be attributed to for the coming year's budget that is not recurring? So the reason I ask is because obviously we're gonna have to pay this next year, so we're hiding a year, we're.
Correct. So in really, 2 years ago, I had to change my thinking. Okay, 2 years ago, I would say never put a recurring cost in the grant, never use one-time money for ongoing costs, which is what you are speaking to. And then the biennial budget happened, and we were essentially pushed in the direction of using one-time funds for ongoing costs. And so that has changed thinking, and this isn't necessarily that we're not going to do Apple next year. It's that we have selected that cost to be funded with grant money. But you're absolutely correct. If you have a grant, you don't do ongoing costs, because when the grants go on, you're done. That has pretty much how I have worked for many years. And then 2 years ago, the rules kind of changed, if you will, in how you need to manage district resources. So kind of long answer, but
I understand.
I absolutely understand what you're saying, and I have had to work to change my mindset.
I think
This
one-
is the whole one point, I'm sorry.
It's a really important question, and I'm glad that you asked it, Tracy, because it does get into what does our financial situation look like down the road. And we worked throughout, if you remember, December, January, February, even going back to November, and doing our budget forecasting for the next few years. And there's always a lot of assumptions when you do that forecasting. One of the biggest assumptions was what the state will do when it sets this coming year's biennial budget. And if you recall, we built in $125 per student into our assumptions for the next 2 years. And we're hopeful that the state will come up with more funding than that, but it's cautiously hopeful because it hasn't been the history necessarily at the state level. I've had a number of people ask me since the referendum failed in April, is the district planning to bring another operating referendum anytime in the future? And my answer to that, and it kind of ties to your question around our long-term financial needs, is that we'll have an answer to what the state does hopefully by midsummer for the next 2 years, and that'll play a huge role in what our budget forecast will look like moving forward. And we also will know, another big assumption that we make is what our enrollment is going to look like for next year. We have a pretty good idea, but we never know for sure what our enrollment and open enrollment numbers will look like. So I think a reasonable path forward for the board would be when we get our third Friday count numbers this fall and know what the state has done, we'll be working on budget projections for the next few years with that information in mind, and then the board will have to look at what those budget projections look like to determine if or what level of request would be made to the voters. Speaking to Tracy's point, we know that anything that we're not reducing now is something that we potentially would need to reduce later. We made a commitment in this round of reductions to do it without making layoffs. And I think it was the right decision to do. But I've also shared with people when they ask that Fort Atkinson is a neighboring district that is kind of 1 year ahead of us in budget reductions, and they're making pretty significant reductions this year. And if we don't see a change in the state's funding of schools, we may be in a position more similar to that a year from now. But I'm cautious in us I'm cautious in us not using these one-time funds for the coming year because we have the ability to use them. They expire if they expire in 2 years. There's been talk at the federal level about clawing back unused ESSER funds. So I think that, and Carrie's done a great job, and the conversation at the committee too is around this being the best way to utilize those funds in the situation that we're in right now. So I would strongly recommend the use of that. It gives us some good flexibility for the coming year.
And I would feedback that, Rich. A bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, right? And we know we have about $1 million left of this, and we know we can use part of them now, but in light of recent events, we may or may not have access to them in some later date. So we have an eligible expense and have the opportunity to use it for it. It would be in our best interest to do it while we know we can. And with that in mind, I would move to approve the use of ESSER 3 funds for payment of our Apple One lease.
Second.
Thank you. That motion is from Dave, seconded by Ed.
Can I have one more question? Sorry.
Okay.
Are you gonna use the entire amount that's left?
Correct.
Okay, so whatever, you said $600,000 payment, and then you're gonna go back, and, because it says we used 2 million, we used 978, so we have about a little over $1 million left. You said the payment was 600,000. Am I missing something when I'm reading this?
Yes, we also have the ability to claim indirect costs.
Okay.
So we'll use what we can towards those payments, and then the indirect cost claim is intended to help cover your costs related to administrative grant. So
Okay,
we will
so-
spend down the entire amount.
You will get, okay, that's my only question. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
As quickly as I can.
A motion on the floor from Dave, seconded by Ed, is to approve our ESSER 3 funds for payment of the Apple one-to-one lease. Any other questions? All in favor of approval of that motion signify with aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Thank you. Okay, and now the cursory stuff. Miscellaneous A is staffing report.
I would move to approve the staffing report as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Dave's motion seconded by Rick to approve the staffing report. Are there questions on it?
Quick question, if I may.
You bet.
Just because it kind of threw me off. What is the travel coordinator positions? Have we got those before?
Yeah, go ahead, Jeremy.
Okay. So those are positions that you actually, in all the advisor stipends, you'll see a travel stipend, there's a budget for that. And then we would name what are the trips for that year. We're working with HR and payroll, setting up a system where we would actually identify who those people are. In the future, we'll let you know in July who those positions are. So in there, those are the 3 trips. 3 of them were the band and choir trip to Florida. And then there's actually an Ireland trip this summer. That's the FFA that's going to Ireland this summer. In July, I'll present to you what the trips are going to be covered under that budgeted item and who the specific people are. And there's the stipend changes based on the length of time of the trip. And it's actually for the preparation and developing of the trip, not just the time.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
And Jeremy, while you're there, I just want to make sure that it's clear to folks, the cost for the student travel, flights, hotels,
Those
bus
are all-
trips, can you share how that is funded?
It's for all those trips, those are by the students. In most cases, they have the ability to be fundraising for them, but there's not district dollars. They're the students.
So the district's cost, there would be these stipends for the staff members who put in a considerable amount of time to plan and do the coordinating for those trips.
Any other questions on the staffing report? All in favor of approving it as it's presented, signify with aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Thank you. And meeting dates, Rich?
We have 2 upcoming school board meetings in June 12th and June 26th. The regular Monday meetings at 6:30 here at the district office. We have some HR committee meetings coming up as we're doing some preparation for next year. 2 of them are set, they're actually on the same day, back to back to each other on June 7th. The first one at 3:30 in the first floor conference room. The second one will be here in the PDC at 5 p.m. That second one is to begin negotiations with the Milton Education Association. And then we originally had a HR committee meeting scheduled for this coming Wednesday, 2 days from today. That was to finalize the administrator supervisor post-retirement benefits. We got that concluded in 2 meetings, so we don't need that meeting. But there are some agenda items that we would like to discuss with the HR committee, and we'd like to schedule one for Wednesday, May 31st. And we don't have a time picked out on that yet. I don't know if committee members want to share out some possible times on Wednesday, May 31st, or if you want to reach out to Carly by email.
I'm available all day.
I can do morning.
Morning probably works. I'll confirm it tomorrow then. Okay.
Let me throw out a time or a potential time, and then John, if you confirm, then we know what time it is. If any time on that morning works for people, I'm gonna do a quick check of Chris Tukendorf's calendar. We're pretty flexible. What time on that morning would work best for Jen and Rick, and would most likely work for you?
9 o'clock?
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
So tentatively 9 a.m. on the 31st, but John.
Pretty certain it'll work.
You'll verify with Carly, and then Carly will send an invite out for that. Okay. We don't have any other committee meetings scheduled right now. We may have conversation about the need to get a finance committee meeting in between now, and we probably should, between now and the 22nd of June, or excuse me, the 26th of June, when the board sets the preliminary budget. Do we want to look at some possible dates for that right now, or would the finance committee prefer that we send something out on some possible dates?
Does it make sense to put it as close to that 26th meeting for access to information that we don't currently have, or?
I would say sometime sometime after the 12th. It gets a little tight because I think, John, you have a conflict in there, and I have a little bit of vacation time with my sons that's scheduled in there too. So maybe it might be easiest, and we potentially could do it before the meeting on the 12th too. If committee members are okay with it, we can send out an email with some possible windows.
Yeah, I'm open for everything, so pick it amongst yourselves, I'll make it work.
Dave, are there any windows between like June 8th and June 20? Let me take a quick look at the calendar, because we don't want to get too close to the 26th in case there's some things we need to prepare for that board meeting coming out of the committee meeting.
Are you just looking for certain days? I mean, probably the week of the 12th would make sense. If we have something that requires further follow-up, that could be a window to do it.
The 12th, 13th, or 14th would work from my end. If that works for, John, what's the window where you're not?
14th through maybe the 21st, 22nd.
So does Tuesday the 13th work?
If it's earlier, or.
Well, that's a Tuesday, right, after our regular board meeting?
Yeah.
8:30 in the morning, does that work?
I could make that work if that works for everyone else.
Pick 8 or 8:30, and we'll obviously have a meeting on Monday night prior to that so we can confirm it, but.
Let's write in 8:30 on
Tuesday the 13th. Let's do that.
And we might schedule an hour and a half if that works for folks, and then if we're done before then, we're done before then, but I think blocking that much time off might be valuable.
Right.
All right, thank you. Did you get that, Carly?
Yeah.
Okay, that's it for meetings that you need.
That's all I had.
I move we adjourn.
Rick? Rick and Dave, all in favor? Aye. Dawn, thank you.
Don't forget to sign.
I did. Send that back. Send that back.